I just wanna make you mine. Mine, mine, mine. Mine.
What did I miss and start pouring it everywhere?
Mine, mine, mine. Mine. Mine, mine, mine. I just wanna make you mine. Mine, mine, mine. Mine. Mine, mine, mine. I just wanna make you mine.
Hello there. All right, so today we are doing some heavy deadlifts. We're about 4 weeks out from my competition and I'm stoked. I'm so stoked. It's the first time I've competed in a hot minute. So we're gonna go through that first, and then we are going to talk about how heavy you should be lifting. And this is more so targeted towards beginners and intermediate lifters. So we're at a new gym. Let me tell you, I am fully obsessed with this gym. There are competition plates, it's bright. There's a CrossFit section that is completely available to us whenever they're not doing classes. Let's warm up. We're gonna do 10 minutes on this baby right here. My knee is absolutely killing me. When I had the knee injury from literally over a year ago, it will never fully heal unless I get surgery. I did front squats, which put a lot more pressure on the knee. So I'm having those repercussions today. You know, it's nothing too serious. Still gonna be able to deadlift, still have the full range of motion, but I'm gonna have to foam roll it a bit more just to warm up and get fluid moving a little bit better through these muscles. So I'll spend about 2 minutes on the hamstrings and 2 minutes on the quads each, and that's it. That's really the most benefit you're really gonna get from it.
I just wanna make you mine. Mine, mine, mine. Mine, mine, mine.
Whoa, look at that flexibility though. I'm about to do the splits just to turn the freaking camera off. What the? Welcome to my chaos. I really should not be doing that before deadlifts.
I just wanna make you. I just wanna make you. I just wanna make you.
Okay, so we just hit 3 singles at 133 kilos. Now we're gonna throw some, I thought someone was in the bathroom. Oh my God, that scared me. We're gonna throw some baby powder on the legs. Do a little bit of this, swing it around on the legs. Basically, this just helps the bar slide up because when you're sweating, the bar sticks to your legs.
Up, 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 up. Go too fast, come on. Pull, 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 pull. Come on, pull, pull, pull. You got it, you got it. Push.
I don't have that. All right, now we just have some back offs for triples, super lightweight, 75% of the working weight, and then we're done with deadlifts. Finally. I hate deadlifts. Wait, something's wrong. This is not 75% of my working weight. Okay, I'm an idiot. I accidentally had 220 as my working weight, not 320, so I put the wrong number on the bar, like way off. It's corrected, now it's a DCT triples.
I just wanna make you mine. Mine, mine, mine. Mine. Mine, mine, mine. I just wanna make you mine. Mine, mine, mine. Mine. Mine, mine, mine. I just wanna make you mine. I just wanna make you. I just wanna make you. I just wanna make you.
All right, folks, the lighting is a bit of a struggle, but just work with me here. We're gonna talk about how heavy you should be lifting and give some beginner tips on working with RPEs, percentages. I know a lot of people want to get into powerlifting or get into lifting levy and get into lifting heavy, but you can't just jump into lifting heavy. So let's talk about the steps that you should take and how heavy you should be lifting depending on which stage you're at. So we will start with absolute complete beginners. It's so exciting. You get to see the newbie gains. We love that. That means you're getting strong relatively quickly. But lifting heavy is not going to be you deadlifting 300 pounds like I just did. It's going to be lifting 90 pounds or maybe even just working with the bar alone before you actually get into the heavy lifting. Your coach will probably tell you, and what you should be doing if you're not working with a coach is working with weight that feels challenging with the last couple of reps. So you shouldn't be maxing out. And the reason why is because your main focus right now is going to be form, technique, getting the full range of motion, and working on mind-muscle connection. So mind-muscle connection, a lot of people ask what that is, and really you're just focusing on the muscle you're working. So if we're doing bicep curls, don't be thinking about what you're gonna eat after your workout. Listen, I'm the same way. I'm constantly thinking about food, but think about it during your rest. So you wanna focus, okay, I'm working this muscle. If you're struggling and you're working with a trainer, they may even tap this muscle like this to keep your focus there. Moving nice and slow and controlled. You wanna work with lightweight. Now we're gonna move into general beginners in the gym. You'll have a little bit of those newbie gains that you had for the first 0 to 3 months, but it's not going to be as much. The progress is going to slow down quite a bit during this phase. You'll start to learn what RPEs are. During the complete beginner phase, sometimes learning RPEs and all of these different concepts of training can be overwhelming. Really what you should be focusing on then is just form, technique. Don't stress so much about it. So after the first few months, that's when you wanna start working on RPEs, learning what RPEs are. As a beginner, you're not really going to be working with percentages because you won't have tested your max and you won't have lifted enough weight to actually even get a predicted 1 rep max yet. But during this phase, you will be learning those RPEs. You're going to mess up the RPEs. RPEs are literally just perception, rate of perceived exertion, the rate of intensity. It's really just your perception of how heavy the weight is. The main thing is you still want to be focusing on form. You still want to be focusing on technique. You want to focus on that mind-muscle connection, but really starting to push it now because your muscles have adapted a bit more and are able to handle more weight. That's just progressive overload. Usually when you're a beginner, the goal is to lift heavier every single week. At this point, usually each week you can add 5 to 10 pounds on the bar or on the dumbbells and progress from there. Sometimes you can't, like for things like bicep curls, you're likely not going to be able to add 5-10 pounds each week. If you are, then you're a genetic freak. Like I still curl with 15 pounds, okay? If that makes anyone feel better. I don't curl often, just like once a week, 1 set. You'll usually do 2 to 3 sets here and work with rep ranges of 8 to 15. So this is working within those hypertrophy ranges, really focusing on building this base now. So you don't want to lift too heavy yet. Now again, this does vary because just because you're a beginner doesn't mean you can't start lifting heavy, but what it does mean is that you want to be careful, and it really depends from person to person. And once you're a little bit more intermediate, you can start working with the rep ranges of 6 to 12. So now you're getting a little bit heavier with the weight. RPEs 7 to 8. You probably aren't going to max out as much. For the average gym goer, this is probably where you'll be. But if you're a power lifter and specifically trying to get into powerlifting, it's going to be different. So you'll start working with rep ranges of 6 to 12. Brian just came out. The topic of the video is how heavy should you be lifting?
It's going to depend.
If they're a beginner.
Well, if you're a beginner, you're going to want to take it a little slower.
What should their focus be if they're a beginner? Like first 0 to 3 months.
Focus should be your form. You're going to want to take a little more time for recovery.
Good point.
They can fatigue much quicker. You're going to be feeling the DOMs heavy. I wouldn't even go heavy yet. I would focus more on my form and progressive overload because you want to give your body time to gradually handle heavier load.
Yes.
Because if you don't have your form right, throwing on heavy load, most likely, your risk of injury is pretty high.
Exactly.
Number one, you know, your risk is going to be high. Number two, whatever your max is, probably not going to be like your true max, because you don't know biomechanically, you probably don't have that stuff down yet.
When should people start testing their maxes?
I would say once they got their form down right, and once they get to a point where like you're doing progressive overload.
And you start off in cycles and phases, so you're not going to jump into doing singles like you'll see us doing. You're going to start doing 2 to 3 sets of 15 plus reps where you're really just focusing on mind-muscle connection, you're focusing on form, you're focusing on technique, not heavy weight. There's that. You also have your rate of perceived exertion, your RPEs, which I was just talking about. You're not going to be fully aware of how much you can actually lift, because a lot of times with beginners will be like, oh, I can only lift, I can only do 1 more rep, I can't do any more. And I said, okay, do 1 more, do 1 more, do 1 more, until they do 10 more reps. So with beginners too, it's hard to actually tell how much weight you actually can lift, so your RPEs are going to be a little off, and that's okay. But I think the biggest issue is going to be risking injury, because that's going to prevent you from longevity in the sport or in lifting in general. And also throw off your whole quality of life. He is going to school soon for physical therapy. He works in a PT clinic, and I mean, that's the whole reason he got started, was because of your injury with his low back. So
I learned a lot from that. Yeah, during high school, I was taught by football coaches who didn't really know much about training or proper form or anything like that. I took that information with me beyond high school, and then into college when I got my lower back injury from improper form of deadlifting. Then I had that athlete mentality, you got pushed through the pain, so I kept lifting on my pain and stuff.
Camera died, but real quick, I want to also add to what he was just saying. If you do want to build muscle or change your physique, you have to focus on progressive overload. So this is going a little bit heavier or doing more volume over time each week typically. So
for you beginners out there, just focus on your technique, your form, work on your weaknesses.
Very good point. So let's say if your knees cave in, we want to strengthen like our abductors, strengthen our glutes. That's not the only thing, but that's just one little example. If your knees are caving in, we have to find, why are our knees caving in? What's going on? Is it something with our ankles? Is it something with our hips? But that's a really good point too that I didn't address. And then focusing on mind-muscle connection is going to be very important. But yeah, the weaknesses is really important, because when you're first getting started, you likely are relatively sedentary, which means you're just sitting down a lot for your work, sitting down for your hobbies, or watching TV, or doing whatever. We sit most of the time. So you're likely going to have some imbalances that you do need to work on. So a lot of times you're going to have weaker glutes from sitting down, because your glutes are in that stretched position all the time. Other common ones are things that I struggle with, which is forward shoulders, forward neck, text, what do they call that, text neck. You also have like the pelvic tilt, so where you stand like this versus like this. So you'll likely experience some of those imbalances, which you can work on those.
Yeah, these stem from just like everyday lifestyle stuff. Exactly what she was saying, like how you sit and things like that.
He is a coach, so you can work with him. Go to the website, link in description, and you can sign up with mostly him, because right now I'm not accepting too many clients. He's accepting. That'll be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Do you know what they should do? Like and subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
I just wanna make you mine. Mine. I just wanna make you mine.